Welcome to episode 7 of Her Mentor. So excited that we made it to episode 7 of Her Mentor. I saw a stat recently that something like 78 or 72% of podcasts never make it to episode 7. So just celebrating that we've made it this far, and appreciate everyone who's been following along with this journey. With that being said, episode 7's guest is someone I'm super excited to be sharing with you all. This week, we're going to be chatting with one of my old managers, so one of my old mentors, Liz. Liz is someone that I worked with directly at a startup that then got acquired by a public company. So we went through that journey together, which was super exciting. You'll hear from her story that she is based in Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania, and how that has played a role in working remote for her. You'll also hear her journey from being someone who started out being a little bit anti-sales, don't know if sales is for me, but I'll use it as a stepping stone, to now being almost like 14 years into her career. 13 years later, she is a sales director and leading teams, outbound teams specifically. So you will hear all about that from Liz. Wanted to give that quick intro. Also just wanted to give a shout out that Liz is also a mom of 3 kids under the age of 5, I would guess. So she has a lot going on, but always is making time for her team and really going above and beyond. So I'm so excited for you all to hear from Liz and meet Liz and hear all of her stories and her experience being a woman in leadership. If you are someone who is in sales and really wants to pursue a path to leadership, this is definitely the episode for you. So we will hand it over to Liz and I now. All right, so welcome, Liz. I'm so excited to have you joining here. From the intro, folks will know that you were my manager at one point in time, so obviously learned lots from you. And I think that you'll have so much wisdom to share with others, but welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here, and it's so fun to be together again. I've missed working with you every day, so this is fun to get the gang back together, so to speak.
I love it. I'm so excited. Would love to just start things off with kind of like what your story is, how you ended up in sales, since I know that didn't seem like the plan immediately when you were in college, that you studied public relations. So just curious if you could give a bit of insight there.
Yes. So originally I was going to go to college and be a nurse. I'm going way back here.
Whoa.
I shifted very last minute. I don't think my parents were super happy with me. Like the day I had to declare my major, I changed my mind. I changed my mind in my college and what I was doing. Very common for me to be indecisive. You'll figure that out as we keep going. But anyway, I shifted to PR, and it was kind of risky in the aspect that I live in a very small town. So PR, my parents were like, what are you doing? Like, where are you going to work? Where are you going to get a job? I just loved everything in my course structure, what I learned, took so many valuable points from that. And that's what really led me to making that move into PR. So when I was going to graduate, I had these big dreams. I wanted to move to Washington, D.C., which is fairly close to me. It's not like a cross-country move. And I wanted to work for this healthcare PR firm. My mentor, teacher in college, she had a great connection there. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. As soon as I graduate, I'm going to go. I'm going to do a summer internship. Hopefully they'll hire me on. However, my plans changed because I met my now husband in college. He was a little older than me. He was already established. He had a job, a house.
Yeah.
He wasn't moving. So when I graduated college, what year was that? 2012, right?
Okay.
Yeah. The job market wasn't great. So I was just happy to take anything at that point. Again, PR, Amish country, Pennsylvania, not a booming metropolis. So I had previously worked at Penske Truck Leasing, thanks to my dad. He had worked there and got me a summer gig that I worked through college as well. And was working there, and I was doing a management program, and it was great, except I wasn't passionate about truck leasing and transportation and supply chain. So it's always, I feel like, easier to find a job when you have a job. So I was working, I was learning a lot of valuable skills, but I decided to look for something I was more passionate about. And I applied to this local e-commerce marketing company that at the time I didn't really even understand what that meant. I was young, I was I think 22 at that point, and I honestly forgot what I even applied for. So when they called me back, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds great." And I was like, "Shoot, a sales job? Ugh, I didn't want to work in sales." I feel like most people I know that work in sales didn't start out wanting to be in sales, and I was almost like,
Yeah.
"Ugh, there's so many negative connotations with sales. I don't know if I want to do this." Anyway, I took the job. Felt like an awesome company. At that point, they were maybe like 75, 80 people. And again, I saw it as a really great opportunity to work for a great company, a great culture,
Mhm.
lots of growth. Like they were blowing up. And sure, I'll do sales for 6 months and then I'm going to transition to marketing where I knew I was destined to be. However, I had never left then. I've been in sales ever since.
I love this story because it is so similar to so many other people's story of like there's kind of 3 points that you mentioned that have come up in other episodes so far too, and just like in people that I've worked with story, some of them you've worked with too, of like
Yeah.
the medical to then a business kind of role of some sort. That is a really common
Yeah.
thread that I'm seeing. And like I took PR as well, so I'm relating to the PR to sales pipeline that happened too. Like the skills that you learn in school around PR are very transferable to sales, which isn't something that I ever thought about or learned in school. And then the third, and I guess there's four, because the third one is like you didn't know exactly what you even applied for. And you're
No,
like, I don't know what an e-commerce company really does, but like I like buying stuff online, so maybe I'll apply to this. And then like the fourth final one that everyone seems to say is I'll take this sales role. Like sales isn't really for me, but it's going to be the stepping stone to get where I want. So I love how like common all of these pieces seem to be.
I know. And I feel like once people start in sales, so for me, it was, yeah, I'm only here a year. At most, I'm going to be I started off as a BDR, an outbound role. I'm doing it for a year, no longer, no more. That's it. But it kind of gets like addicting in a good way. Like I love the thrill of the chase. I love that adrenaline rush when you talk to that CMO at back then, could have been at Nike. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is a huge account that I've been chasing. This is like my whale, my Moby Dick, so to speak. And I just
Yeah.
got in touch with them and I just got this meeting and now this meeting's progressing and there's a chance it's going to close and that all happened because of me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun. Like it's so fun. So I stayed.
It's such a cool job too because you can see the exact tie to revenue that you're bringing in. Even as a BDR, like you're not the one selling the deal necessarily, but you're able to look at like a deal with Nike, for example, might take months and months. Maybe it'll even take a year or two to go through. And then you're able to look at it and be like, whoa, I did that by sending like an email or picking up the phone and calling. So love that. Why don't we talk a little bit about where you are now? Because you've made the transition from individual contributor. We're skipping over like a chunk of your career by me simplifying this, but you went from individual contributor, SDR, BDR kind of role, and now you're an outbound director or sales development director. I'm
Yes.
curious, like what that path and what that trajectory has looked like.
I've done I've been really blessed to work for some really incredible companies, some really incredible people. I cherish like all of my previous leaders. I don't know if I'd say long, but yeah, so I started off as an outbound BDR.
Mhm.
I then was a team lead, so I like part managed 6 people back at that e-commerce marketing company. I was ready for more, and the company at that point just didn't have a position for me to be a full-on manager. So I took a leap and decided to do more of a closing role in partnerships, which was really, really fun. A lot more like field work. I was doing like the trade show circuit, and I had a really large territory. Like I had I had all of the Southeast, Midwest, Northwest, like it was a massive territory. I was on the road all the time, learned incredible skills, and realized being in a closing role really isn't for me. And that's okay. What I think a lot of people, when they start in an SDR, BDR, some type of sales development role, the only path is to become my current company calls them SEs, sales executive,
Yeah.
or more commonly account executive, AE role. I feel like a lot of people think that that is the only trajectory, when really, in my opinion, the SDR role is such a good foundational stepping stone to so many other paths that I never want people to feel like this is the only way to get somewhere else when it's not. But I took the traditional route of trying out a closing role, quickly learned it was not for me. I went back to my old department and led again. And then at that point, I had been with that company for 7 years. So I was ready to try something else. Again, I live in a very small town. So I kind of felt stuck of, what do I do now? Because there's not really anything around me that would fit what I want to do. And I'm not moving to New York City. I'm not moving to Philadelphia or to DC. So bless remote work. I started at a company. I think I was the 9th employee at another e-commerce brand. And that, I will say, if anyone is looking for just a change, work at a bootstrap startup. And let me tell you, your the view on a lot of things will just change. And it's like, in my opinion, such like invaluable experience. I joke with friends that you can tell people who have worked in restaurants or the service industry before. I kind of feel the same about startups. It's like you've either done it or you haven't. And the people that have, like, they get it. That job was incredible. I was the first, well, I wasn't the first sales hire. I was like the second sales hire. I built the program from scratch, did the playbooks, helped hire. We made an outbound function. We weren't doing that before. My previous leader over there was incredible and just gave me so much autonomy, flexibility, and just trust. And that's something I haven't had before in previous roles, which is someone that trusted me to, like, just do the thing. Like, I trust you, do it, show me, let me see how you want to do it. And like, come to me for help. I'm always here, but I believe in you. You got this. So from there, I went to the company that we worked at, which was still has like a special place in my heart. I feel like it was so magical in the best way possible. Just that I loved the company. I loved the culture. I loved the people I worked with. I never once had Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
The product was so cool too. And there was such a great market fit that it just felt like easy to be there. But there, I was brought on so at my original company I worked at, I mainly focus on enterprise accounts. The reason I was brought in at the company we worked at was they were trying to go up market into enterprise. And historically, I had 8 years experience of enterprise SDRing at that point, or enterprise sales. So it was exciting, again, to find kind of a niche where I was needed and to build a program. As Kelly knows, we weren't successful in the beginning. It wasn't
hard work to go into a completely different market. Like, selling to medium-sized businesses and selling to enterprise corporations is very different.
Absolutely. And it was one of those things where it's like, we said we're going to do this, but there wasn't really a plan of like, how are we going to do this? Or what does this mean? Like, what does enterprise mean to this company? And like, what are we really striving for? And how is this motion going to be different from mid-market or small business? So that was such an eye-opener. And again, like, just great resume and skill building of looking back. I wish I would have done a lot of things differently. But you live and you learn. And I had great people surrounding me. And like, we figured it out eventually. We became very successful. But those first couple months, looking back, I would have done a lot differently.
And sometimes you need those failures to learn what will work, or like to kind of light that fire under you of like, oh, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I do need to go out and figure out different things. Like that's how I was seeing it as a rep on that team, at least.
Totally. And the thing is like, you never know if you don't try. So
Exactly.
let's put it in the idea bucket. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, well,
Yeah.
we would have been here anyway. So,
Yes.
sorry, this is very long-winded at this
No,
point.
you're good.
To where I am today is all of this great, valuable experience. And unfortunately, the company that we had worked at, my magical unicorn thus far in my career, got acquired, which it makes sense. It was awesome. It was magic. It was a fantastic product. In the acquisition, we had shifted over to a really large company. And while that company is equally wonderful, the large company just isn't for me.
Yeah.
So I had started looking for something more in like my niche market, which is not a bootstrap startup, but something that's not a huge company where you just feel like a number. And that's totally fine for some people. It's just not where I like to be. So I found my current company that really needed an overhaul. They needed help. What they were doing wasn't working. It was really a rebuild project. And if you know me, you know I love a project. I love a puzzle. I love getting in the weeds and just figuring out what are we doing today and what's not working? Do we have process in place? How do we get this engine like back up and running? So that is how I got to where I am. Lots of hard work, lots of learning, a ton of failure, so to speak, but the resiliency, just keep going and keep trying is what I tell everyone. There's never a bad idea. It might not be the right time,
Yeah.
but you got to just try and just keep going.
And like you're gonna learn from every single one of those experiences, like
Yeah.
from being at the tiny startups where they're trusting you to do things where sometimes you're like, I don't know if you should trust me to do this right now, all the way up to being at the big corporations and seeing how they do things. Like you're learning from each one of those experiences and bringing that full picture to where you are now, and wherever like the rest of your career takes you, you'll have all of that experience. And
Yeah.
I think that the failures are like a big part of that as well, because you do know like this doesn't work. We're not going to do this part again.
Right. Or again,
Yeah.
like it didn't work then, but maybe it will in a
Yeah.
year. Like you just never
Yeah.
know. The market could change or personas could shift or you just
Totally.
never know.
Especially in outbound, I feel like every like few months,
I know.
something that was working so well, all of a sudden it's like, nope, that's overdone. Everyone's doing that. There was steps to your progression. It wasn't just like overnight went from IC to director. There was like a progression of more responsibility, team lead, all of that. But I'm curious with that transition, because I know that there's probably people listening to this that are an SDR maybe who are like, oh, I would love to be a manager or director someday. Like that seems really cool. I'm curious if you can speak to kind of some of the challenges, because I'm sure it wasn't all just like daisies and rainbows and easy all the time.
I would say the biggest challenge from going from an IC to any type of leadership role is one, if you're in the same company. So the people you used to work with as peers, you are now their leader.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of potential imposter syndrome that comes with that. Do they respect me? How do I tell my friend that their approach like isn't good, or like don't do this or don't do that?
Yeah.
Or absolute worst case scenario, what if you have to fire someone? Or what if you have to have a meeting with them in HR and write them up? Like that was my biggest like keep me up at night scenario, because that was my first experience in leadership.
Yeah.
I went from an IC on a team of, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 people to now like I'm leading 6 of them. And that was tough. I would say the other biggest challenge going from an IC into any type of leadership role is you don't have as much control over your variable comp, where as an IC, you see, for the most part, direct correlation of like the effort you put in, there's going to be output. Or
Yep.
if I'm behind on a goal, I can just grind. Like I know certain things that I could do to be successful, and I was successful in the role. As a manager, you're kind of at not the mercy, but it's up to other people and how How do you motivate them? How do you help them? Are you actually giving them valuable tips, or are we just having a one-on-one to have a one-on-one and to say we checked a box? Then I'd say the other challenge is, and if anyone's listening to this that has gone from an IC to a manager role, hopefully they can also relate. There's not a lot of formal training.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times people get promoted because they do really well as an SDR or as an AE. And it's like, cool, you've been crushing your quota for a year. We're going to make you a manager.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Like, and nothing happens. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to run an effective one-on-one. I don't know how to give coaching strategies, forecasting. What do you mean? Like, I don't know how to do any of this. And it's like, all right, have fun.
In terms of, sorry,
No,
I was just going to ask, this is like off the cuff too, so we can cut it if you're like, yeah, I don't know. But in terms of learning that piece, how did you navigate? Like, was there certain resources that you would recommend to someone who might be right now transitioning and struggling with those things? Or was it like finding another manager and just kind of learning from them? I'm curious, like, how did you figure that out? Because you obviously did figure it out eventually.
I would say like a big combination of a lot of different things. So finding friends. So now it's like I lost at my old role, like I lost my friends, my original peers I used to be ICs with, because we were so friendly, but they weren't who I was eating lunch with anymore. So then I had to shift and find new friends and ask them a lot of questions, like learn from them. Like, what do you do for this? And what do you do for that? Pro and con is I was the only one in my role, so I didn't have like a counterpart at the time, so I could kind of like share more information with other people, other departments. That was kind of nice. But also I've been really lucky that most companies I've worked at had some type of like learning and development or education stipend. I read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of podcasts. One of my favorites is 30 Minutes to President's Club.
So good. Yeah.
I love that one. Looking at thought leaders on LinkedIn. I know that sounds silly. And then I'm still a member, and Kelly knows this. I've promoted this for a while, but I absolutely love Pavilion.
Yeah.
I think that they have such great content. They have this wonderful Slack community where you can bounce questions and ideas off people and get feedback. A lot of people share documents. I remember the first time I was in a leadership role. This was a long time ago at this point. I didn't even have like a one-on-one doc, and no one had one at the time. And I went to an in-person leadership seminar, and they were talking about like how you run one-on-ones in this document. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't have one. Like,
yeah.
It was like, anyway, I think Pavilion is just such an awesome resource, not only from the courses that they have, the community that they've built. So again, another long-winded answer, but that transition and going back to how did you learn, you just kind of have to go for it. And back to like what makes a great SDR is being curious, always wanting to learn, going out and asking the questions. Same thing in leadership. Like no one's going to tell you what to do. You kind of have to figure it out on your own. And I hope I am successful in what I'm doing. I think I am, but yeah, a lot of learning on my own.
One thing to call out there is everything that you mentioned, for the most part, minus like one tiny seminar mentioned, but all of those things are remote. And I live in a smaller town too. You do as well. Sometimes living in a smaller place, you can feel like, oh, like if I lived in somewhere like New York, they have all these events and I can go meet people in person. But there's something so special about the tech community being very remote that you can learn from so many people. And I know you even called out at another point, like not wanting to move to a bigger city. And I know a little bit about your life. Like it sounds like you have a lot of friends and family still in your hometown where you are right now and not wanting to leave that. So I think that's like a beautiful call out that you can be in sales and like be a mom raising a family and work remotely. Once again, another thing that like I didn't plan on asking you about this, but it seems to be a big part of who you are. But I'm just curious, like as someone in sales who is also a mom and is able to work remote, like what that means for you, because I think that there is something really empowering about being able to work remotely as a woman and also as someone who wants to have a family.
Yeah. So for me, like without remote work, I genuinely do not know in where I live. So again, I live in Amish country, Pennsylvania. I moved to a bigger town, but where I lived when I first started at the job we worked at, my town's like 4,000 people. Like it's really small. And the city, there's not that many opportunities. So I've been working remote since 2019. So like pre-COVID.
Yep.
To this, like I just love working remote. I don't ever feel like I'm missing out or like water cooler conversation because I talk to people all day. So like I personally love it, but I will almost always have to work remote unless I were to move, which to your point, it's not in the cards for me. I have kids 5 and under. The just the flexibility and like freedom and independence of working from home for me is priceless. I'm a hard worker. I am pretty much available on Slack almost at all hours, which is a me problem. That is not my company to be on. I used to joke that I'm a recovering Slack addict, but I'm not even in recovery. I'm addicted.
Slack addict.
So if someone messages me at 7 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern, like I will likely answer. But the nice thing is that, again, I have 3 kids. I don't have to be in the seat by 8 a.m. And I don't feel the pressure and the rush that like I have to be here at a certain like arbitrary time, just like show face, so to speak. The idea that yesterday I went and like I forgot my son's lunch. So I quickly ran my son's lunch and like no one's caring that again. Like I left to do that and it came back and I'm back to business. That type of stuff, again, invaluable. My daughter needs picked up from the bus at 3:45. I walk down and get her. I come right back to work. So to me, priceless. I will personally always work remote unless I can't for whatever reason, but I love it.
And that's so empowering for younger women that even report to you. I'm speaking of like myself looking at you as a manager. It's really nice to see that because, and this is kind of like switching into what we're going to talk about next, is most leaders in sales are men. And yes, there's a lot of dads who are like going out during the middle of their day to do things with their kids, but you were always someone that as a woman, I could see myself in you a little bit more. Where like sometimes your kids would like come on our one-to-ones randomly and you would always be like, I'm so sorry and stuff. But there was something really empowering about that of being like, wait, she's a mom and she's moving up in leadership and like has a really successful career while also having 3 like young children that she's raising as well. And I know that, of course, like your husband is part of how you're able to manage everything, but just calling out like how empowering that is for younger women who maybe don't have kids or a family yet to see that in women in leadership.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is really just one, I think you can do it all. And I know at times, and this might be getting like too personal, but at times like I feel like I'm failing at work and sometimes I feel like I'm failing at home and it's hard to juggle. But it goes back to, in my opinion, like the company you work for and the people you surround yourself with and what's that company culture and what are their company values. And like my current leader and our leader that we had at the company we worked at, they would never once question if I had an appointment or if my child's homesick or if I had to run and I wanted to volunteer in my child's classroom or any of those things. And I've always looked for that in a role in a company more than say the title or the product. It's like I want to surround myself with people that I enjoy being with and people that I look up to and that are human first versus company first.
And you are like a prime example of being a leader like that. So I love that you're looking for places like that and that you are also being that. Switching gears a tiny bit, but still very connected, is like being a woman in sales leadership. There's like various stats around it, and it depends on exactly what industry you look at. But in general, it's like 1/3 of sales roles are held by women. And then when you go to leadership, like manager, director, all of those levels, it shrinks even further and further. So I'm curious what your experience has been being a woman in leadership in sales.
I would say now I don't even think anything different of it, as far as I don't feel any bias or difference as a woman or in sales or as a leader.
Yeah.
In my early years, oh my gosh, yes. I 100%, even as like my first IC role, I was always nervous to take up too much space or to say too much or not enough, or am I being too assertive? Do I have too much of an opinion? And part of that is also probably just me being young and not necessarily as a woman, but I was 22 and people were asking for my opinion. Like, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Or they weren't asking for my opinion. It's like, but I have one.
Yes.
And there's definitely places I've worked at and scenarios that I've been in. I'm sure you can relate to this, of like the good boys club and you're just not a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have had some interesting scenarios. Experience generally as a woman in sales and woman in leadership has been like roughly fairly well. I will say, especially like in my current role and where I am today, I don't think anything differently. And I will call out that I am the only female on my team, on the
Wow.
sales team. Now, I do report into marketing in my current role, and there are a lot of women on that team, but in true sales, I'm the only one, which isn't surprising, not surprising. I feel like now in 2025, more uncommon that I'm the only one, but back when I started in 2012, absolutely not uncommon.
Yeah.
I've only ever had one female boss, one female leader who I absolutely adore and like genuinely shaped a lot of who I am today. But I've almost always reported to men. And certainly there have been times where it's been like the boys club and people talked to me differently or treated me differently. Again, I worked in a partnership sales role, and I remember being so excited. Like, I landed this huge meeting with, at the time, a platform partner that we haven't had contact with in years. And I was so excited. I brought my boss on at the time. He was new to the role. So at this point, I had been with the company like 3 to 4 years. My leader is new. He's maybe been on the role for 3 months. We're in person. We get to the meeting. We're at a conference. We met for coffee at this conference. The partner shows up. It's me and my leader. He asks me to get them coffee and a donut and then to not sit with them afterwards. And here's the thing.
What do you say in that situation? Like, I'm genuine. Like, I don't think I would know how to even conduct myself. I feel like this might say more about me than anything, but I feel like I would just do it out of not knowing what to do.
So I was genuinely shocked. And the worst part of it is that my leader at the time didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So now I'm 20, I was 25 or 26. So I'm young, but not super young.
Yeah.
And he asked me to get coffee and the donut. So I come back with the coffee and the donut. And then he just kind of like shooed me away with his hand. And I was like, what? So my leader at the time said nothing. Didn't stick up for me, didn't say anything. And I think that's what hurt more. And then I said back to the partner how, like, I'm the one that conducted this meeting. Like, I'm staying. Good and bad. Again, my leader was new. I had to do most of the talking. So I hope I proved myself valuable. But that was like the first time that I was so taken aback of like what was happening.
You're also there to like kind of try and get their business in some way. So I know it's not necessarily like the right mindset to have, but sometimes in those situations, it's just like, I guess I'm just going to have to go along with this because I don't want to piss off the person I'm asking for money from. Like,
last one I'll leave you with.
Okay.
Same leader, same role, same, all the things. We were in a group meeting. I think there were 6 of us there. He had asked an opinion on something. I can't remember what the topic was. I answered, and he looks me point blank and said, just because you are a college educated woman does not mean anyone cares to hear your input or opinion. And I don't think you should be talking. And I got up and I left, and I immediately went to HR and I went home for the day. I would have quit, but I was getting married less than a month. A month
exactly for their wedding.
before my wedding. But yeah, so all of that to say, back to my overarching message of it's really important who you work with and who you work for, and feeling supported and feeling valued, and like telling these stories now, 10 years later. I'm laughing, and I shouldn't be, because this is very serious and it's so inappropriate all around, but it's funny to me because I would have handled myself so differently now than I did then. And I also cannot imagine any of that happening in my current state, that it's almost like I just can't even believe it happened, period, let alone so many bad experiences over and over again, which is part of the reason why I left that role.
Yeah.
And all that to say, that person didn't work at that company for very long, but
No.
really goes back to company culture, company values, the people that you work with, and that human first versus business first mentality.
It's so important. Like, we're all just people working towards common goals. Like, even in those situations of with talking with partners, like they're also working towards business outcomes at their company. We're all just like people working towards something else, but we're people first. So let's treat people like people instead of just being disrespectful because it's a woman. Or I'm curious too, like, I don't know, and you probably don't know either because you weren't the one doing the wrong things in these situations. But I wonder if it was partly like age as well, that they were just like, she's a young woman, she doesn't know anything, or
100%. Yeah.
Silly.
Yeah. The original scenario of when I was kind of dismissed, that was another older gentleman, and my former leader was older as well. And yeah, I would say a lot of it's just age, and maybe some of it's because I was a female, but I think a lot of it was age. I was too young to be where I was.
Yeah. And yet there's a study that I saw recently that says 1 in 4 men don't believe any biases for women in sales exist. I'm like, maybe move into this.
No, I would say if anyone thinks that, like, that's just kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go on with stories. I'm a
I know.
but even people that I had an employee just straight laugh in my face once. And I cannot imagine they would ever do that to a man, but what do I know? Maybe they would. Who knows?
I think that there is a lot of unconscious biases that happen, and I've never been a manager, so I can't speak to what that experience is like, but I can speak to being a sales rep and having men speak to you like you know nothing about what you're selling. And I'm like, would you do this if this was one of the male AEs on this call? Probably not.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears over to something that you've mentioned a little bit, though, because you've kind of been one of my mentors in life. I've been very lucky where I've only reported to a man in sales for like maybe 2 weeks. Like that, that's it.
Lucky. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know how that ended up happening, but I've been very lucky to learn from a lot of women. But you've mentioned that you'd only reported to like one female in your career so far. So I'm curious, like, what that mentorship experience, or just like in general, what role mentorship has played in your career.
I would say mentorship, good and bad, has played a pivotal role in where I am today. Part of the reason I went into leadership is because in my early career, I didn't have great leadership. And I hope to be the person I needed then in my role now. And that's my entire why of what I do. Because I didn't feel like anyone cared enough to support me, to mentor, to coach. And it was kind of, again, just like a checkbox, like, cool. I met with Liz one-on-one.
Yeah.
And off we go. When I always wanted to have a career, and I always wanted to level up, and I wanted feedback, and I wanted guidance, and I just never had that in a lot of my early career. So one, negative mentorship or lack of is part of why I'm here where I am today. Part two is I did have some really great leaders, and all of them mentored me and helped shape who I am today.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite, although I shouldn't say that, my current leader is phenomenal. But I'm talking about past leaders if he's listening.
Okay.
You're all wonderful. Former leader, my absolute favorite was Jasmine, who we worked with at our former company. And I remember the first time I met her on my interview, I said to my husband afterwards, I was interviewing with a lot of companies, I think like 6 at the time. And I said to him, I don't want to keep going. Like, I want to work for her. And I never felt just such like an instant, not only like personality connection, but just someone that translated so genuine and so authentic across the screen. Even though it was an interview, I felt like I just got this big hug.
Yeah.
And it just felt so warm and fuzzy. And I just believed I believed everything she was saying, but everything she was saying was just like exactly what I needed at the time. And then on top of it, her personality just shined so much that I was like, I have to work here. Like, this is exactly where I need to be. And I feel so thankful to have gotten that role, because we worked together for probably 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of who I am today in my current role and where I was at that company is because of her. Actually, let me back up. I had previously shied away from showing too much of anything at work. I didn't want to be too assertive. I didn't want to be too emotional, so to speak, or like showing like my true colors too much. Kelly knows this. I'm very warm and fuzzy. I'm very chatty. I can cry at a funny meme. I can cry at a commercial. I never really shared any of that at work before, and just kind of had a wall up because I didn't want to be too anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jasmine really gave me that ability to just be my authentic self, and like, that's okay. And I want you to embrace that, because that's what makes you you. And that's what makes us all magic together. And there was never like judgment of any of it. Jasmine loves Disney. She owns it. I love reality TV. I owned that at work, and I never once shared that before. And just that little piece, which seems so silly to just be who you are, but I feel like once you can do that, you can really just be the best version of yourself and really have that autonomy to just do what you need to at work. And I just had never felt that level of support and almost like community before.
This is like a little Jasmine hype session, because I want to call it that my interview experience with her was really similar too. I had accepted a role at another company and had another one that I was pretty certain would be coming in. And then they reached out to me saying, "Oh, you got the job." And I was like, "Nah, like I'm not really interested in this." And I hadn't met Jasmine yet. And she was like, "Can we get on a call like this evening? Like, I really want to present this to you." And I met with her, and I was like, she is such a genuine person. That's why I want to go there. Like, I know that any of these 3 job options will be great learning experiences and opportunities, but I want to work with someone genuine. And then you calling out, like, I finally talked about loving reality TV at work. Like, that's part of who I am. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and she's not in sales. She's an architect, so like completely different world than us in many ways, but was talking about like, I think I'm going to start posting some stuff about being a yoga teacher on LinkedIn too, because that's a big part of who I am. That's also like, I make money doing that professionally as well. Like, I can be multiple things. So I think there is something really empowering and special about being allowed to be a human and not just like this professional buttoned up version of yourself. Like, we all have interests and hobbies, and that can be another way that we can all connect and relate to each other, even at work.
Absolutely. There's one more thing I want to say, that
Yes.
because of her ability to just let me be me, it also put my guard down, that like it was okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It was okay to make mistakes, and it was okay to try new things. It was okay to share your opinion and you felt heard. It was okay to just say, I don't know and I need help. And I feel like that's something, again, without that sense of support and community in other roles, you can be scared to ask the dumb questions, or you can be
Yeah.
scared to make a mistake because someone's going to yell at you. And
Yeah.
you're going to get that, can we chat ping on Slack, and your heart drops. And
You have a second. Ooh.
yeah, not a second,
No.
you can hop on a huddle and it's like, oh no, now you're going to yell at me about X, Y, and Z. And I feel like because of that, not only the culture of our team, but because of her leadership style, like all of that fear went away. And again, goes back to being able to do your best work and that sense of autonomy and trust and just faith that she had in people. And I think that part is also very pivotal in how her mentorship and like leadership shaped me to who I am today. And I hope to be like her in the best way possible.
Absolutely. You totally are fostering similar environments where I think this has come up on multiple episodes now, just because I've talked to other people that worked with us. But you were the type of manager that was like, okay, girls on our team are getting married within like a week of each other. Why don't we throw a virtual bridal shower for them? Or like, hey, like you're doing really well with hitting quota. Here's like a special little shout out and a gift card to go get yourself a coffee. Like very good at that, while also being able to have real conversations about like, okay, something's not going well right now. How do we fix that? And I think that's really important, to be treating people as humans, so that when you do have to have the difficult conversations, it's not like our guard is already up and like, oh, Liz is like so like robotic all the time, I'm scared to go get yelled at by her kind of thing. Whereas we felt like normal people. And when you did have, obviously every manager is going to have hard conversations with people at different times, whether it's them not performing well or company changes or whatever it might be. It just makes all of those a little bit more disarming from like the IC perspective.
Absolutely.
Let's move into the advice portion, because I think that that's one of my favorite parts of every episode, is ending it off with just like advice and reflecting back on things that you wish that you would have known earlier in your career, so that maybe somebody else doesn't have to go through the same challenges. I think there is something beautiful about going through challenges and learning from them, but also it's nice to just learn things and not have to deal with it yourself sometimes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I guess the first one that I'm curious about is like, what has been one of the biggest challenges for you to overcome in your career? And if you could go back in time and give yourself this little nugget of advice or like word of wisdom, what would that look like?
Believe in
Big
yourself.
question.
No, like honestly, the biggest challenge for me to overcome in my career is myself, self-doubt, and not believing in myself more, and not thinking that I can do it because of I didn't have the skill in my resume, or they're asking for 5 years. I only have 3 years of experience here, and I'm not even going to try. So
Yeah.
I'm the one that just discounted myself and counted myself out in a lot of scenarios, or didn't stand up for myself enough. And that is, there's quite a few scenarios I wish I would have done differently. And the challenge was me. So
Yeah.
I would say always believe in yourself, because no one else is going to. You hope they will, but at the end of the day, like, no one's going to tell you to apply to that job. No one's going to force you to make extra calls. No one's going to force you to read this book or to gain a new skill. You have to do it yourself, believe in yourself, and I promise it will all work out the way it should. But if you don't try, you're just not going to get there.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is so real for so many women. Like it is for men too, but it just seems like so many women count themselves out of situations. I know I've done it a bunch, just because you think for some reason that you need to like tick every single box and be absolutely perfect before you step into the next step. But like when you apply for an AE role, for example, you are not going to know how to do every single little thing. But if you count yourself out until you have every single skill, you're never going to be able to progress there. So I think everyone needs that piece of advice. I needed it. What is something that you wish that you would have known earlier in your career or done earlier in your career?
I honestly just wish I would have taken more risks and tried more things. And even if it didn't work out, at least I could have said I tried.
Yeah.
Younger Liz was scared to fail, scared to fail and scared to not do well. That I definitely limited myself from not doing certain things, which goes back to my biggest piece of advice is to like not get in your own way, to be your biggest supporter.
Like just do the thing. Don't be scared of it.
Just do it.
On one of the most recent episodes, I talked to she used to be my manager as well before you were my manager. And she's now a coach. So she helps women specifically. And she talked about like the 4 elements of just like fear and why we don't do the things that we want to do and let that get in the way. So I just thought that that was very relevant. And I don't know, but there's so many of us just letting our own freaking fears of failing getting in the way of it. And it's like, what at the end of your life would you rather be like, oh, I'm so sad that I like embarrass myself by not closing the deal? Or would you rather be like, oh, I'm embarrassed that I never even put myself out there to try and do the things that I wanted to do? And like, I don't know, just what do you want at the end of your life? To be embarrassed that you never tried or to be embarrassed that you failed? And then last thing, I just want to open up the floor. Like any other pieces of advice that you have for women in sales, maybe they're starting their career. You've also hired a ton of people in your lifetime. Is there anything that you're like, if you're about to interview, do this? Just open floor to like anything else that you want to share with this audience that might be helpful.
I would say never be afraid to show your personality. I think that a lot of the times when I'm interviewing someone that comes in with energy and again, authentic self and just their own personality, I'm already more curious to wanting to talk to you and continue conversation than someone that almost feels robotic and like we're saying all the right things, but we're just kind of flat. So never be afraid to show who you are and your personality, as well as just having the confidence in yourself to try something new, even if you don't check every single box for that job you want to apply for or the next role or moving up. Still try. You never know what could happen. And I guarantee you're way more qualified than you think you are. Other advice, always set boundaries. Like again, younger in my career, I definitely did not set the appropriate boundaries out of fear, just how do you say the word? Being too naive, and not, again, standing up for myself more. So I would totally give that advice. And lastly, you can do whatever you want. Don't feel like because you started as an SDR, you have to be an AE. You don't have to.
It's huge.
If you really want to do something in product or in coding or in marketing, customer success, all the skills you're learning today are transferable and valuable in other departments. And my advice to you would be to find a mentor there as well.
Yeah.
My favorite part of leadership and my ultimate goal is I want everyone on my team to become like a master of their craft. And then ultimately, how do I get you to your next step? I want everyone to stay with me forever, but that's not the reality. I just want you to thrive in whatever it is that you want to do. And how do I help get you there? And maybe it's not me that gets you there. I have no idea how to code or do product related items. I can get you in touch with the right people.
Yeah.
Making sure you always have someone on your team, so to speak, that's helping you along the way, I think is so invaluable as well. And that might not, hopefully it's your manager or leader. Maybe it's not, but finding someone that can support you along the way, priceless.
That's why I love this little space that I'm trying to build so much is every single person that has been on here so far has had SDR experience in some way, shape, or form in their career, but not at this point, at least, not one of them currently holds the same job title or even is really in that similar of a role. Like
Yeah.
we've seen the classic AE path, SDR manager, director like you. We've also seen like a life coach, CSM. Like it's just really interesting to see how you can use the SDR role as a stepping stone to go so many different directions. And it is such an empowering role for women too, because you can make a lot of money.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
So it's truly like addicting. I mean, here I am 13 years later from a job that I said I would stay in 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
You can really make it to whatever you want it to be. And I followed a semi-traditional path, but again, like you can do so many things. But truly, the world is your oyster after as an SDR, after SDR. It's really a matter of like, what fits your fantasy? What do you want to do?
Yeah. I love that so much. Well, thank you, Liz. This has been incredible. I will, if you're cool with it, provide a link to your LinkedIn if people do want to like follow along with your professional life and see what you're up to. But thank you so much. I know that so many younger women or even women who might be older that are just looking into a sales career for the first time will take something from this conversation.
Amazing. I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. And absolutely anyone is always welcome to DM me on LinkedIn. I love mentoring. So whether you are on my team or not, I'm always here to help, support, give advice. So my DMs are open.
Amazing. Thank you.
All right, so that is a wrap on episode 7 of Her Mentor podcast. As always, going to give a little reminder, if you are excited to continue hearing these stories from different women, as well as a few more solo episodes for myself, there's a few more topics that I want to cover alone. Be sure to follow us on Spotify or subscribe on YouTube. It will help you be aware of when a new episode goes live. Typically, schedule is to post something every Thursday, but there might be some changes coming in the future, maybe spicing things up a little bit. So if you want to be in the know, be sure to follow us on Spotify, as well as if you're enjoying this, leave a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. All right. Thank you so much for being here for our milestone of meeting episode 7.